Fredo, you made it. Thank you. So Rachel, there won't be AI today. Sorry to disappoint. All right. Hey everybody, thanks for joining on a Wednesday afternoon or morning, depending on what time zone you're in. We'll get started, and as people come in, we'll help get them caught up. And Mari, good to see you. Thanks for making the time today. Appreciate you. So for those that may not know who I am, my name is Quincy. I'm a team member of the Teaching and Learning Center, many of which all of us are here today as well. We'll be mixing it up with you in today's conversation. Today, we're going to talk about an incredibly important topic. Ready? Jazz hands. Course evals. Everybody loves talking about these, right? This is a lot of fun. No matter if you're teaching in a clinical setting, in person, online, in the hallway, whatever the case may be, I think you've landed at the right spot. I think this is a great conversation. If you haven't already thought about it, talking about how we evaluate our courses. So today, my point is to share why these are important. Course evals are important. Talk about some pitfalls, get you all to weigh in on some things that you're contending with, and then share some best practices for how to do this in a meaningful way. One of the hopes I have for you today is that I welcome you to ask questions, share your comments and thoughts, as well as answer questions from everybody here by coming off mute or using the chat at any time. All right, I want to hear from you, and I want to make this session as interactive as possible. You ready? Here we go. So I'm going to start with a loaded question right off the top to get your attention. My question is, how do we know if our teaching works? Feel free to come off mute. Feel free to use the chat if you're comfortable. Is it through grades? Is it through feedback? A crystal ball? What would you say? Sue, might you have some thoughts on this?
Oh,
Grades.
I
Thanks,
always
Tiffany.
have thoughts, you know that, but
Yeah.
passing boards, student performance and feedback, grades, um, seeing skills progression.
Okay. But how might you measure skill progression?
For me,
Yeah.
uh, if they can do something that they couldn't do at the beginning of the term.
Okay. Awesome. Pre and post test is coming in. Feedback and grades. Feedback and grades, very popular. Student performance and feedback. Feedback. Yeah, I love this. Passing their boards. Board score is huge. Huge deal. Huge deal. Fantastic. Awesome.
And
Thank you all for
sometimes you
sharing.
don't get that
Yeah.
feedback until long after the course ends.
Interesting. We're going to talk about timing a little bit here
Mhm.
today. Seems like you came to the right place. Fantastic. We're gonna talk more about this, and we're gonna gather some more actionable insights. I hope to be able to answer this more comprehensively. So thanks everybody for sharing. So for today, besides these objectives, what I hope you take away is that course evals is not just about collecting some feedback at the end of the semester, as Sue so eloquently put just a moment ago. It's about systematically assessing our teaching practices to ensure we're meeting our students' needs. We all hope to be able to help them achieve their learning goals, right? And we have set them out, and this is a great way to do that. Uh, my goal today is that you walk away with some actionable insights and strategies to help you evaluate your courses. Any questions so far? Please feel free to come off mute or use that chat. So before we get into the good stuff, let's talk about the not so good stuff. So what are some challenges y'all are facing right now with course eval? So you put in some great ideas already about things you're doing. How's it going? What are some things that you're contending with? What are some trouble spots? All right, what would you say are some things that you contend with when evaluating courses or even conducting course evaluations?
A huge issue that we have is the timing. I mean, we open an evaluation 2 weeks, for 2 weeks for students to respond to it and then provide the feedback. And by the time that that same course or module rolls around next year, the faculty are not really doing anything with the feedback. They've reviewed it
Mm,
last year and nothing's changing.
wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's significant, right? Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So timing is a big one. Take not just timing and then we do them, but then what are we doing with that data? That's a big issue for sure. Let's check this. We got some rolling in here. Students can apply the coursework to clinicals. Okay. Not having context. Woo, Ryan, absolutely. Anonymity, these are good. Absolutely. Subjectivity, right? Are we measuring the right things? For sure, for sure. Julie, would you mind expounding on this subjectivity a little bit for us?
Sure.
And
So, I mean, like sometimes, right, students will say something took them a lot of time, but if it was a really effortful task and it took them a lot of time, they had to think, you know, critically about something that may not be as well rated by some students as something that was more passive but less effective. So there's differing opinions about what was helpful, what was not helpful, but also sometimes, we'll see students, wanting something to be more passive, even though that's not going to be as good for their long-term learning. And so it can be hard to understand what action to take if, 50% of the people liked one thing and 50% of the people didn't like it. How do we move forward on that? So it can be hard to
yes.
navigate.
Yeah.
I likened it to Amazon reviews, right? Best product ever, worst product ever, and it's probably somewhere in the
Hmm.
middle.
Right, right. Yeah, just for entertainment, I like looking at one-star reviews at Amazon. They're always delightful. But yeah, no, great point. How do you make sense of what's good, what's bad, right? On those things. I'm glad you elaborate on that. Absolutely. Even our instructor biases too, right? We have to have an open mind. That's some good stuff. We're going to talk about it. Rachel, I've got a trick question for you, but before I ask you, these are some of the things you have already highlighted here. Sometimes when we ask for feedback on our teaching, we're already biasing the results, right? If it's after the fact, what value does it have to the people providing it? That's sometimes unclear. And sometimes the instructor, Murray, I think you hit it on the head, is that they're moved on, right? Emotionally, they're happy to be done, depending on the length of the unit of instruction, these type of things. And then we hope to get a good response rate. And this might be touching on Julie's point about the subjectivity is like maybe we're only getting 50% of the perspective. Maybe it's only not just an Amazon review, maybe it's just a complaint box, right? We're not getting any feedback about what's working. We're just getting all the complaints, and maybe it's more personal or superficial in nature. So yeah, these are great things that we contend with to be mindful of. Great things to have in the front of our minds. Um, so my question, Rachel, what suppose we didn't do them, right? Because of these challenges, these issues. What are the drawbacks from not doing them? Because I think it's easy to skip. I know in my house, it's an emotional day. We have two educators in our house, and end of the semester, we're getting comfort food. We're doing all the things to prepare ourselves to crack open those course evals to pump ourselves up. But we know we shouldn't avoid them. What happens if we do?
There's no opportunity for improvement. You don't know
Mm,
what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, and so you're just kind of staying the same, and nothing's progressing and improving. And also timing. I mean, if we're just using grades and our students passing boards, that could be years down the road after they take our course, and then we don't know what we missed or what
wow.
they student missed going into their future career.
Yeah, that's a really solid point about, the time, the communication loop, right? The feedback loop. If we don't get this done closer to the instruction and we don't course correct, right? If we don't have the opportunity to do it in a timely fashion, like what are we doing it for? I like that a lot. Does anybody else have thoughts here on what happens if we don't? ask for course evals or feedback on our teaching? In addition to not being responsive to the things as our students' needs as they prepare, we're trying to put them into the workforce to be effective at what they do. Um, times change. Times change. What worked back in 1984, my parachute pants and my jean jacket might not be as effective today at capturing attention and feeling like in the in crowd here. But it's really easy for our teaching methods as technology topics, workforce needs change and evolve. We need to bust out of our routine in a strategic way. We don't need to change everything all the time. That creates a new problem, but we do need to check in on what's working and what's not for sure. I would also say that this actually not doing course evals will create blind spots in what we do in the student's experience, right? We think that something worked in the semester before or something that worked for us. We might have a whole nother set of factors that contribute to what the experience is for our students. It can create blind spots for sure. And then one thing I think we're kind of saying too is then the need for transparency from the institutional level. A lot of times things like course load management, right? If we're seeing that a particular course is getting a lot of feedback about the course is too packed or it's going too fast, it's at the wrong level for the student as where they are in their training. These type of decisions, we don't get that information, so we're not necessarily making data-driven decisions. And then accreditation, right? To be able to say how this is going, what are the themes, what are the outcomes, how well are we aligning the objectives to the goal and executing on that. These are things that we need to know for making data-driven decisions for sure. So regular evaluations, as painful as it might be at times, these are essential to avoid some of these pitfalls you're bringing up. And like you said at the top, Rachel, we need to get better. This is a great tool to get better. Questions about that? All right, so let's start moving into the good stuff then. What are the benefits, of course, about besides getting better? Is there other things we could think of?
Highlight the things that we're doing well for P&T purposes.
Okay,
And
P&T.
and the areas that we've improved and we've grown over time.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome factor too. Thing to consider is like how are we evolving? How are we getting better? Absolutely. And then just even our performance, right, as educators in our respective departments. That's really good. Absolutely. Anything else?
Another benefit is that is part of our annual review and promotion. So you need
Yeah,
to have those evaluations.
everybody wants to get promoted
Mhm.
for sure. Bobby, I saw you make a move. Is there something you wanted to add as well? Thank you, Alfredo. That was good. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks, Bobby. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think we're hitting all the high notes here already, but we learned what's working and what isn't. That's not trivial. That's a very important thing that why we consider course evals. We're trying to figure out what's working and what's not for our students. As pointed out already, Rachel and others, it gives us opportunity to make adjustments too, to improve that way. And it helps us stay accountable to our students and to our institutions, right? We need to be able to do that. At the end of the day, that's what why we're here is for our students and then also to stay accredited. So when we evaluate our courses, it's not just checking a box. This is something I hope we can get away from. It's not just about fulfilling a requirement. Oh, I'm doing this because somebody told me to. It's that we're actively trying to improve our teaching effectiveness. And more importantly, we're trying to enhance the student learning outcomes. So more good stuff. This is my favorite part, talking about some best practices. So scouring the earth for what's working and what hasn't. I've come up with 4 categories, four ideas here to talk about, and there's many more, but given the time, I want to talk about these 4 areas and things that we can do to hopefully improve the effectiveness of our course evaluations. All right, starting with designing effective course evals. I think to me, there's several benefits here. You won't be too shocked hearing me say this or anyone from the TLC say this, but what are your learning objectives and how are you aligning to them? That is no different with course evals, right? If our goal is to teach skills to prepare them for the clinical rotation in the next year or board exams, they need to know certain things to be able to do well on their board exams. This should be reflected in your course evaluation at some point, at some level. So we need to be really clear on our goals and our objectives. And I think, are we doing this already? Do you all feel like we're doing this in your course evals as is? Aligning them to your learning objectives specific for the course? Are you aligning them to your program goals? Is this happening?
Not really.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
I
But I
found
think,
that if, for example, the surveys that we use here, the evaluations, are exactly the same format for every single class that is given.
hmm,
I found that some of the questions are not even related with my course, for example. So, but they are all made exactly the same for everybody, for every single class, which I
right.
feel like should be more custom made because every class is maybe a little bit different.
And to that point, Alfredo, then maybe there should be another bullet point here about the customization. We need to be willing to customize or have that ability a little bit to be able
Yeah.
to effectively design our course evals. Because yeah, that's problematic for the students. They don't know how to tell you what you really want from them, and then 2 is then you don't know how to interpret that information because it's not really applicable, which is one of
Yeah.
the later things here, right? You're in an online environment and they're like, did the teacher come to class on time? What? That doesn't make sense, right? And that can actually take away, that can detract from what you're trying to do from students. They get confused by that. So that's a great point. And if any of us here have the influence, we might consider being able to make some modifications. But it really does start with the objectives of the course, at the very least, the program level, right? We all have clear program level goals. We should be connected to those things. And then when we do, no matter what we do, we should think about simplicity and clarity of what the questions, how the questions are interpreted. I once taught an undergraduate course. It was a general education credit. So that meant I got students at all levels, freshmen and seniors, at all levels of their education from all majors. And one of the questions was the technology appropriate for the class? That meant different things to different students in the class, right? Engineers were like, there was no technology because they're expecting coding and satellites orbiting the room. And then we had some folks that were liberal arts majors, and they were like, yeah, the whiteboard was really effective because that side of the classes, their buildings that they were in, we had a smartboard whiteboard, so you could write on it and it would project and do all the things. It confused folks. The word technology was very confusing. And the course eval, to my surprise, did not define that. I didn't think to define that in my course evals. So these are things that we want to think about clarity, things that could potentially trip up our students to be able to give us the feedback that we're asking for, and then just how we do it. Simplicity is a tricky thing. We don't want to be overly vague. For instance, did you enjoy the class, right? I'm sure we'll get all the answers, thumbs up, thumbs down. But at the same time, something more specific, such as how effective were the course materials in helping you understand key concepts, might be a little bit more of a way to be simplistic, but also actually ask for specific things that are related to the course. So keep that in mind, clarity and simplicity as well. Another thing too is not to just evaluate the content. Consider the delivery as well. So oftentimes, the course eval, especially Alfredo, I think you're not alone in this. You see a lot of evaluations that are really only one-dimensional. They're only focusing on content or delivery, never both. But this is where we can protect ourselves against blind spots. That could be a problem with delivery that we don't ask about, right? That's usually us, has to do with us. Alternatively, it could be a problem with the content. The content didn't support this amazing delivery that we did, right? So try to cover your blind spots by asking questions related to both content and delivery. This is the big piece. We're gonna drill into this in the later sessions as well. Another principle is about tailoring your evaluation to talk about modality, Alfredo. If it's an online course, it should be geared towards asking questions related to the online experience, not generic. That's not something to be overlooked. Whether it's in-person, online, hybrid, the evaluation should reflect these differences in the questions, because this is going to reflect the difference in how they engage with the material, how you deliver the instruction, these type of things. So an example would be like in an online course, you might ask a question about the clarity of the online resources. Did they find it okay? That might be different than an in-class or a lab-based or clinical experience, but it's worth asking. And then lastly, KSAs. Show of hands, who's familiar with KSAs? Knowledge, skills, and attitude. TLC was right on that. Love it, Rachel. Okay. Yeah, this is a big deal too. This goes back to the learning objectives and aligning to your learning objectives. Your learning objectives should reflect the type of learning that they're going to be doing in your class, right? If it's skill-based, if it's knowledge-based, you should also ask questions related to that. Did the students feel that they got the skills that you set out to train them, right? As opposed to, do you know what you need to do to work in a clinical setting? That's different if the class is skill-based, performance-based, hand placement, right? Very different. So make sure that your courses, if you can, it sounds like this is something we need to contend with, but they should also reflect knowledge, the type of learning that they're doing. If you're going after knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or a combination of those things, that should also shape your evaluation. Questions about this? This is an important slide here. Questions about this before I move on.
So we've got at least one in the chat. Rachel is asking, validating surveys takes a lot of time and effort. So how do we balance customization and validity?
That's a tricky one. I'm gonna ask that question back, Rachel, and to others here. I have thoughts, but do you have thoughts?
Well, I think it goes back to what Alfredo was talking about, how our course evaluations are largely standardized. We don't even send them out. You know, I don't know how it works. I get it in my email and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know my students were filling that out. So I just don't know how much customization we have. But I know the evaluations that are standardized have been validated and, you know, went through an intense process. And so I don't have an answer, but I see the importance in it, you know, validating the questionnaire so we know we're asking what we want for the information that we want to know. But at the same time, I see the value in that customization to the course. And so, you know, everybody across ASHES isn't getting, you know, the same, you know, across programs. It's not the same questions of everybody because it's not, they may not be applicable.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's not a pure answer here in this case, but I think you got to start somewhere, and the line here for me is here's an example. I'm going to, if I may, you're doing some amazingly futuristic things in your courses, and you're considering things like leveraging new technology like artificial intelligence so students are going to interact with that in their class. Fair to say, right? You're doing some stuff that's pretty futuristic.
Yeah.
Okay. we want to know how that's going. I think that's a no-brainer, right? So there might not be a heavily validated question that you could just throw in there. I mean, we could probably workshop that a little bit here today, but at the same time, we have to start somewhere. And I think it's worth trying to get information on how that technology in particular is working in a very novel way. So we have to start somewhere. Maybe it's a committee that we start devising and we test these things out, but we check those things. We check them, right? If you have a smaller class, all right, let's see. I don't think it will be nothing, but we can do some statistical things on it to try to make sense of it. But I think it starts somewhere. That's how we do start to validate the reliability of these instruments. That would be my first step. I wouldn't be afraid of it, especially in your case, but in all of our cases. If we're doing case review asynchronous med program or dental program, and this is all new, we have to ask the question somehow. Alternatively, there's some literature out there that has some really cool instruments out there that you might use. The CIQ, you might pull from that, you might leverage those type of things. And then also, we would keep doing it too. I would hope that we keep doing it from semester to semester, and that's where we make adjustments, which is something those of us here today have already recommended. But it's probably a bigger conversation. But Rachel, does that kind of touch on?
Yeah, so would it be fair to say we shouldn't be relying solely on those standardized course evals that go out, every block, but we should be, as Julie put in the chat, kind of doing and implementing our own thing, whether it's I am doing a survey for the AI tutor and, but doing that for all the courses and that customized questions, asking customized questions of our students.
I do. I think instead of saying no, we're just going to rely on what we've always done, and because it's been the reliability has been heavily tested. Cool. Where was that tested? How was it tested? Was it tested in a situation, an environment, a learning context like you have? That's why I'm be brave, right? Let's talk about it. Let's start somewhere. We can borrow from places like Julie just dropped in the chat. We can borrow from places, so we're not starting from scratch. And then there's things we could do on once we start incorporating things that are checking new ways of doing things to hone in on being reliable and valid going forward. So we got to start somewhere. Great question. Great question. All right. Any other questions? All right. So
Yes, I
related.
have a question.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who is in charge to develop the evaluations in every school? Is there a particular department or
Yeah,
committee or what?
Dr. Altman, your expertise, you care to weigh in on that? Murray, I know there's usually a team responsible for that. My impression is that there's a university level team, and then there is school. For each school, there's a team that's responsible for the course evals, the dissemination, and documentation. Is that close to accurate?
No.
Okay, never mind. I'm gonna go off camera.
Because what I have noticed in those evaluations, at least here in the dental school, they have been the same for the last 7 years.
Oh, wow.
No updates or anything like that, as far as I know.
Okay.
And now that we have this conversation, I'm just curious to find out who it is and talk to that person or those people, because it will be interesting just to customize somehow each evaluation for every course. I would like to put some questions there that I'm particularly interested to know what is the feedback of the students, and not the other questions that don't really apply to my course. I don't know. I'm just thinking loud. That's all.
So it happens at the school level, right? So who's ever developing the course, instructional designer helping? I mean, that's not done at the university level. the university's involved with some of the questions in the graduate exit survey, but we don't do individual courses. That happens at your own school or college.
And I
So,
wonder,
Dr.
go ahead.
No, Sue, please.
I wonder if there isn't an opportunity to use both the survey instrument that your school has developed so that that continues their consistent reporting, but then you do your own, supplementary evaluation where you tell the students, look, you have to do this one for the school, please do, because they need that data. But I also need data for me to be a better instructor. So can you help me with this survey as well?
Love it. There's a comment, and then Melissa, get her way in. Thanks, Sue.
Yeah, I'm with ASJO along with Dr. Hernandez. So Dr. Hernandez, I can reach out to you after we're done with this conference because I have the same question and I think I know who does it, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to throw them under the bus. So I'll reach out to you afterwards to confirm.
Thank you, Melissa.
That's awesome. Thank you, Melissa. I do feel like we should stop recording at this point because we're going off grid here. No, just joking. But yeah, Ryan. And so this is my question. OAA's role, I know they have task stream and digital measures, but is that not connected?
So my understanding, we have, and I don't remember the exact number of questions. I think there were 5 that are ATSU course questions, and then maybe 4 that are ATSU instructor questions that
Okay.
we use. And then Mosdo also has some course and instructor questions that we supplement the ATSU survey with. And then the Office of Accreditation and Assessment actually pulls the ATSU questions out for their reporting, and we pull out the Mosdo questions for our purposes.
Got it.
That's my understanding anyway.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing. Okay, that's helpful. Mari.
I have similar feedback to what Ryan's saying. We have university questions that we just send out. I'm on the curriculum team. We send out, like Dr. Hernandez was saying, those same questions regarding every course and module for ASDO. And it would really be up to the faculty to say, here are my personalized questions, or perhaps they can do like a different type of survey other than what we do. Like we use something called Watermark Eval Kit, but some faculty for their specific modules will use like Qualtrics surveys and, have more personalized questions. So it could be something like that. But I think Dr. Hernandez, we could talk about it after to see how we can help you get more your questions answered there.
Teamwork. Love it.
Hey, thank
All
you.
right. Awesome. Okay. Thank you all for weighing in. That's helpful to know. All right. So now that we've talked about the design, the next component is increasing the response rates. And this might touch on Rachel's question about the validity and reliability. No matter if it's a proven question that we've used for years or not, we got to make sure that we are getting the full picture, right? And that's dependent upon student participation. So question for y'all is, what are some ways that we currently work to increase student response rates?
Well, for me, this is a big topic.
Okay.
Because
Let's hear it.
I've been in institutions where has been mandatory to do it.
Okay.
And I've been in scenarios where it's voluntary. And when I see, these evaluations feel just for 25-30% of the class, for me it's meaningless. Doesn't mean that much, So what happened with 70% of the class? They really don't care about the class. They really don't have any work, or they are so busy that they don't have 15 minutes to reply. I don't know. So I'm more towards making mandatory, because I used to have classes where they don't publish the final grades if they don't have the evaluations return for every single course.
Mm.
So I don't know. I felt like I have more valuable feedback when I have 100% return in evaluations that if I have just 30%. Because in this
Sure.
30%, if you have 10% or 5% of the 30% that is negative, they think that your whole course is bad or is going in the wrong direction or something is wrong with that. But I always ask, what the other 70% think about it, you know? So I don't know.
So Fredo, yeah, yours 2 points. One is that with the goal of getting better and then, better helping students support them, it isn't very it's not as productive when 30% of the students reply, depending on the class size. That's problematic. And you bring up additional points is that then how is that interpreted? Low response rate, there's a stigma attached to that, oh, it could all be, great scores, but because you didn't get everybody or a bigger response rate, that there's something wrong. Which might not be the case, right? So, and then how do you interpret those things? How do you interpret what results you do get? It could be selection bias, meaning you're only getting part of the picture. One thing that always pops in my mind is I don't want them to be, comment box at the grocery store, right? I want it to be like good, bad, and indifferent. I want to know more about what's working, not just the problems in the class. So you're bringing out some really great points here. Dr. Altman, I see you come off mute.
Yeah, so I think that the other flip side of that could happen as well. When you make them do it, they just go in and just because I have to do it, they'll click everything good or is the middle or everything's at the end, just because they just have to do it. At least the 30% that are doing it care enough to do it. And generally it's the people that either really liked it or really don't, right? And so you assume that the people, everybody else, I assumed, is in the middle. They're fine. They don't care. The other thing is as I think Rachel said in there, you kind of have to care. And a lot of students just like, well, it's after the fact. I mean, my class is over. Nothing I say is going to help me anyway. I'm done. So I think that attitude prevails.
And I'm going to hammer this in just a few moments about this very thing that you all are describing. Sue let the cat out of the bag, and Don, valid point. Last day, day after class is over, why should I do this, right? Low response rate, high response rate, right? We have to think through this stuff to be able to make meaning out of it. But yeah, so are there ideas on the table here that you might offer that would increase student response rates, besides making them mandatory?
Some of the feedback in the chat is offering class time to complete them.
Okay, good. That's a good one. Yeah, what else?
And Erin mentioned that she would email the students and encourage them to complete it, assuring them that it is anonymous and she would take their feedback seriously to continually improve the course.
Yes, good stuff. Good stuff. Julie.
I think that piece of communicating to your students why it matters and then showing them that you are acting on that feedback. So I think that sort of gets a little bit to what we were describing, where day after class, why do they care? But especially if you're going to teach them again, or they've heard from other students that feedback has been taken seriously, there's a little bit more motivation for them to do that. So it's kind of that follow through aspect, but it's also almost relationship building, right? If you send out a survey and you don't act on it, it's gonna decrease their motivation to take that seriously. So people who have taken some of our courses, I hope you've seen that we take that feedback really seriously, and then we make changes to the courses, and then we try to publicize that or announce those changes. And I think that's kind of similar for our learners, is they hear things through the grapevine, right? They may or may not take a class with you again in the future. They might have a friend in the cohort behind them. And so if we can do things that show them that we're taking that action, we're putting our actions, aligned are aligned with our words, I think that can help over time. It does not make an immediate difference, but I think it can help over time.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, Jay.
I see that you've got timing of evaluations up there first. A good source of evidence to show that you do take it seriously is to do just a very simple midterm evaluation. How's it going? What's working? What's not working? If something's not working, you make the change. They see that right away.
Yeah, Jay. So that was going to be what I'm getting at here with the timing. We're not relegated. I know, Jay. I love it. It's like you can see my slides. Uh, so no, I'm kidding. But
And
the
Tiffany was
timing,
just typing this very same thing.
yeah. We are not. This is a thing that we get stuck in. We think course evals need to happen the week of finals, right? And we've clearly hammered the idea that that's almost too late to do these things. Why not do a midterm, mid-course, whatever that is, right? Midway through the course and do these things. That is such a powerful tool, Julie. Getting their feedback, like you said, when we communicate that out, this gives us the opportunity to address the things if there are gaps, especially when we're doing cool new things, right? We're trying to always level up and do things differently. So consider not just end of semester, consider mid course as well. And then this has also come up many times here in the chat, as well as on my slide here. We need to make them comfortable that they can share their thoughts. I know. We've done paper-based, and by midterm, we already figured out people's writing, their handwriting, the pen color. We figured those things out. I get it. Sometimes it's hard for us as instructors to get that and really be anonymous, but we need to convey that this is an opportunity for them to be honest with us, and that there'll be no retribution related to their grades or their performance in the class. We need to make that clear to them. And then one of my favorite things that's come up here, Sue, you brought this up too, it needs to be part of the culture. It needs to be part of the culture. The TLC, Julie alluded to this, we truly do make it part of the culture that we want to know how this experience is going for you so that we can make those adjustments. We don't want to wait till the class is over, but if we did, or whatever feedback you give us, it's going to only make us better the next time around. And we try to let you know if you're in our courses or in our seminar series that we take it serious. We want you all have the expertise, you all have perspective. We need that, right? So we make that part of our culture. Feedback is part of the loop. It's just what we do, right? So Alfredo, yeah, I'm proud of you, man. You're like, yeah, my course evals a certain way. I'd like to know these things. Okay, the end of course is one thing. As what you're hearing is you don't have to wait until the end. You could come up with your own way of doing it. I heard Qualtrics as an option, right? Canvas has some really good tools. Google Forms, quick and easy. A lot of flexibility there. Ask for that feedback. One of my favorite things that I like to do if I'm teaching a course, I'll put it in the syllabus. Hey, at midterm, 4 weeks in, whatever the length of the course is, at different points in the course, I'm going to ask you for your feedback. The reason is I want to know how this is going for you. Get their attention right away, then they'll lean into it. As opposed to what Dr. Ullman and others have alluded to is that, oh, this is mandatory. Why am I doing this? It's just a checkbox, right? No, you're part of this. You're part of this. Dr. Hines, I wonder if you agree with this, how you relate to this. At SOP, they want to help you, right? Your program is doing these things and innovating in your classroom. Hey, this feedback is going to be used for future semesters, future cohorts. Do they lean into it? I wonder if they would.
Quincy, I do think people don't trust that though, right? They don't trust the fact that, first of all, it's going to be anonymous when you do it through contracts. They're going to think that you're going to know who it is, right? And by the way, Quincy, people don't write anymore. I don't know anybody's writing. It's all computerized. You're showing your age there. I forgot it now. I forgot what I was going to say.
Cursive.
Yeah, nobody writes cursive. That's not even taught anymore.
Yeah.
I do think that it's different in online than it is in person, right? Because instructors online can't just change the course, midway or not. They're not allowed to then change the content. A lot of times they're teaching it, they didn't even actually create the course. So It seems to me that if you really want something that's non-punishable and maybe helpful at midterm, is basically saying, tell me one thing that you've really liked so far and tell me one thing that you think could be better. because that way it's not punitive. It's not like you're just saying what
Sure.
could be better. And you could say, well, I think this process or this game could have been a bit different or something. It's not like I'm going to get in trouble for it. I'm asking you one thing good and one thing better, or one thing. Yeah. Anyway.
I love that, Tiffany. Sorry to cut you off, Tiffany, but yeah, I love that idea of and this is something the TLC does. Like, what's working, what can be improved, what are you doing to own your learning experience, right? So it's not just entertain me and teach me everything, right? It's collaborative, and this idea of trying to make it anonymous, but it's not really anonymous. I get that. Trust is a big factor. I just really want to adjust that. But if we like, your idea is like, tell me one good thing, one thing that needs to be improved, what you like, what you don't like. I think maybe that takes some of the pressure off. But Dr. Hines, what do you think? What are your thoughts here?
I was gonna say, I think you asked would they have buy-in? I think it'll be split. I think you have some that care, like, oh yeah, this is my feedback and it can help future students. But then I feel like there are some that are like, we don't care because we already have our grade or we already took the class. But that's what made me think of, like I said, one class last year. I did that with the midterm, but I didn't do it again. But I'm thinking now, and I think Erin commented about doing like a syllabus quiz. I always do that, but again, I feel like it's just checking boxes. But if it's maybe the thoughts that I'm having now is doing that like a quiz, but then having that discussion in class. Okay, what are your expectations? This is what we're going to learn about. How do you what did you think you were going to learn in this class, and what things do you think I need to add? Like having that at the beginning. So I would, now that I'm thinking, I might do my own beginning of course evaluation midterm, and then by the time they do SRTs, they'll be glowing because they can see where that's unicorns and rainbow land for me. But that they can see, me trying to implement if it's appropriate changes. Sometimes the things that they want is like that's not appropriate, but I mean, at least letting them feel like they have some kind of say so that you can get a little bit more buy-in, and then they can see if they did make a suggestion, see those being implemented faster.
Yeah. So yes, not every suggestion is going to be appropriate, and not everything can be done. Some of these courses, Dr. Ullman, they can't make changes, and I think it's okay to communicate that to them. I think it's okay to say, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do, and then maybe that's going to be less about what they can do. But I think people would appreciate that if you can, and then creating a culture and doing that from class to class within the program, being consistently doing that too, I think will help reinforce that culture that we're a department and we do care about your progression, your learning outcomes, and these things. We do genuinely want to get better as educators, right? How we do things, give feedback, show up every day, online or in person. I think they will appreciate that better than just showing up and doing nothing, right? Or checkbox. So no, good discussion. I'm going to move along here. This is great. This is awesome. Why these response rates matter. I'm only going to bring up one point here because I think we've touched on most of these things. Sometimes I'm going to say reliability and validity is kind of an internal thing too, Rachel, because even though you might have a small class size, it might be highly specific to your course. I think you can still, with a high response rate, 9 out of 13, I think you could still get an understanding of what works and what doesn't, as opposed to 2 generic questions. I think you can, standard deviation, you could still get some valuable feedback, especially I'm going to talk about the types of data and how to analyze those things. So again, encouraging us to consider specific questions to our courses. It can't all be customized because we have to make it make sense through the program and to the university always. But at the same time, there might be 1 or 2 questions that are specific to our course in addition to the other ones that we might consider. All right, but it's about culture to me, creating a culture where feedback is valued. I think will go a long way. It might start slow, but I think if we do this, it will get better over time. So once we do get that feedback, a couple steps here. Some of this is intuitive by nature, but I always suggest starting with categorizing the feedback, no matter if it's scores, qualitative comments, these type of things. What's what? How do they clump together? What are you getting feedback on? I mentioned earlier, I still believe in this content delivery, right? Look, that starts my two categories. Which of these comments, which of these scores apply to content? Which of these scores or comments apply to delivery? I separate those things, and then from there, I look for patterns. Oh gosh, students are really struggling with access to the content for week 3, right? I need to pay attention to that. Whether it's 30% response rate, hopefully it's closer to 90, probably not 100. But then I start to look at things in terms of patterns. If there's something being said over and over again, or even twice, that isn't nothing. But at the same time, I'm probably giving higher priority to things that seem to be more repetitive pattern that I need to either this is a strength or this is a weakness of the course. I really note the areas of improvement. Back to the point just a moment ago, what can I control? What can I influence? What can I change to make an improvement? And then I always try to seek out a both balance of qualitative and quantitative. The saying is quantitative data tells you what, qualitative data tells you why. Some people think one is more influential than others. Not here to debate that, but I think having both what and why is very, very helpful at making sense of your qualitative, of your course evals. Sometimes we just look at the score. Oh, I got 4 out of 5. What does that mean? 4 out of 5 people like me. I don't know, right? But if you say, why did you give me 4? Or the course content or the course delivery, that might be more actionable for you. Okay, before hitting the home stretch here, any questions about that? All right, so then worth noting here, feedback can be tough sometimes, right? Even constructive feedback, right? We puts us in our feels really easily. We want to be real mindful of a couple things here. You might get some feedback that is glowing, and it might be one comment, right? You might get some that's not so glowing. Keep that in perspective, right? I'm not saying that's an outlier necessarily, but be careful of falling into the trap of one comment and letting it cut too deep. At the same time, it could be the opposite. You're the best teacher I've ever had in my life, all right? In this one comment. It's probably somewhere in the middle, right? And then, in fact, that's probably neither of those are that actionable for you. So be careful about focusing too much, over focusing on single comments. Try to find things that, especially in the patterns that are applicable to your course, in the nuances of your instruction. As best as possible, try not to take it personal. It's not about you, even though it feels that way a lot of times, right? How can it not be? I'm the instructor. It's not about you. 4 agreements, maybe we should pass that book around, but it's not about you. A lot of cases, most cases. And then the real reason why you're collecting that input and putting yourself in that vulnerable position is you're trying to improve, right? If you keep that focus in your mind, it kind of takes this thing away. That's the hope here. But if you keep that, you have to be exposed to feedback to be able to level up. Questions about that?
So Quincy,
All
I put a
right.
question in the chat.
Yeah.
And I think you're offering some really great advice that feedback at all times can feel personal, even when it's even when it's constructive. But I also wanted to recognize the realities that there can be real, I'm going to put it in quotes, micro, because it's not always micro, right? Microaggressions, discrimination and bias. And we've talked about that extensively, both here and in prior presentations. So I'm curious what recommendations you have if one of our faculty members, ourselves or a colleague, is experiencing that, and how they can, what options are available, what resources, what might that look like to process the rest of the constructive feedback, or what recommendations do you have, I guess?
Yeah, great, very important question, Julie. So my recommendations, all things given, we've thrown out a lot of ideas. Some of these things you're able to do, some of these things you're not able to do, and say there is something that comes through that, let's just say, it's inappropriate, right? It is a personal attack. It's beyond just being constructive. It's beyond, I didn't like the course or something to that effect. I would say escalate, right? Escalate. And if there isn't a process to handle these type of things, to try to work with your team, your departments, to try to develop a process for these type of things. They are never fun, and they create all sorts of bad feelings because, say, for instance, you're teaching a course and it's a cohort, intact cohort, and you might have them the next class, you might have them the very next. You don't necessarily know who it is, but that could be there, right? So I really, really, really encourage us to work with your leadership, and then have a process, a plan for how to handle these type of things. It could be something that is internal. That, for instance, I've heard a situation where then professionalism points came into play, and one of the things was trying to ingrain how to communicate with your instructors, these type of things, in a professional way. If you're not feeling a certain way about how things are going, right? Giving training and communicating what that pathway is, I think is a great start for doing that, if there isn't already a process in place. But in most cases, I feel really comfortable saying this, like, your chair needs to know these things. Your department leadership, directors, they need to know these type of things. And then, I would say, you have other things available here to you as well from the university level. And if there's something specific, reach out to the TLC and we'll guide you towards the right resource to help with that. Does that address your question, Julie? Others? All right. Okay. So keep moving here through this here. So also, with these feedback, with the feedback you get from course evals, another dimension too is this is an opportunity to look at your own professional development opportunity as well. One thing that we do here, and Julie has introduced the TLC to the rosebud thorn analogy about ways of interpreting how things are going with the course to be able to take action. If you want to know more about it, we'd be happy to train you up on it, share what we do for our courses and other events that we offer. But it's a great way to know, oh gosh, that really did work. Behind the scenes, you all are taking chances, you're all thinking through things, you're trying to figure out better ways to connect with your students to help them reach their learning goals. I have no doubt on that. That's one of our strengths. So this is a great opportunity to validate that is working and these type of things are happening. It's not just about what am I doing wrong, it's about what am I doing right as well. What am I strongest in? And then areas that maybe are less than strong, maybe it's using technology or a specific technology. Maybe it's a pedagogy like flipping your classroom. This is an opportunity to identify what it is that you might go and seek other professional development opportunities on. You all are here to learn more about course evals, right? This is a great step to doing so. There are other things coming up in the near future with the TLC. We have to level up stuff, course design, educational technology, educational research, evidence-based teaching, these type of things. Seek out. This will be an opportunity to seek out what you need to do next to level up in your teaching, and then set goals. Set specific goals. The rosebud thorn. What I like about it is, what are we going to do about this the next time around? Right. This really worked. What are we going to do about it next time? This didn't work as well as we like. What are we going to do about it next time? So set specific goals, and it could even be very small, simple things. All right. One thing we do is we keep a teaching journal, and class goes a certain way, especially those that you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to go. Keep note of that. Jot notes. Take 2 minutes to jot. Yep, that worked. That didn't work. This is what I would do different. Hold on to that so the next time you teach the course, that you can make those adjustments. Last but not least, that we hammered this, but you don't have to just rely on the end of course stuff. So you're way ahead of me here, about 6 slides ahead of me here. But there are other things out there. Peer reviews. Ask a colleague, right? You might have colleagues that you value. And the Teaching and Learning Center has teaching observations. Go to our website. You can sign up, request one anytime, and we'll show up and we will do a course eval. No matter if it's in person, online, asynchronous, synchronous, whatever the case might be. We are here as objective ways to get feedback on your teaching. There's some great tools out there about self-reflection, things that you could do on your own. How's this going? How's this not going? What can I do to do better? And then the formative feedback loop, we talked about this pretty thoroughly. Ways to seek out feedback from your students. Don't have to wait to the end of the semester, midterm, early term, syllabi, other ways as well, or a combination of those. Thank you all. Thanks, Rachel. So for those that are willing to hang out here, let me skip ahead to some resources. I think that's more important here. I want to share some resources with you really quick so you can, I'll move forward here. I'm grateful to have to rush through the end because that means we were able to have some really good discussion here, some actionable discussion on some things. Just want to present to you a few resources to continue this conversation. We talked about Qualtrics. Slido is a fan favorite in the TLC team, a polling and question asking for feedback in an interactive way, no matter your format, in person, online. And of course, Google Forms, you all have access to that through your ATSU email. There's a really cool book by Dr. Linda Suki about assessing learning, Common Sense Guide. You're looking for how to come up with some great questions to assess different things, different aspects. She guides you through that. She shows some examples. It's worth checking out. There's an oldie but goodie article about validity of student evaluations. I think it's really good insight. You all live it, so I don't think you need more insights about how to make sense of it. But if you were looking for more information about how to validate the reliability, telling the story, these type of things, there's a paper from 2006. And then if you're looking for ways to reflect in your own teaching, the TPI is a great resource. I told you about the teaching observations that TLC also offers, and if one of you can take advantage of. We also offer consultations. We're here to bounce ideas off of. There's some really good resources we can share your way about course evals. And then upcoming in the next 2 sessions, we're going to talk about Quality Matters. Awesome group, awesome community, offer rubrics and some standards related to teaching, all right? And some really cool things about course delivery. Any questions about the resources? All right, so I talked about some best practices here that might help you consider if you can. Course evals, they're really awesome if done effectively. They can really help you understand your teaching and help you reach your support your students' learning outcomes. I think it starts with designing effective learning course evals, and we're thinking about ways you can increase response rates that don't create artificial responses. How do we make sense of those responses when they do come in? And then consider alternative methods for collecting evaluation information. My call to action here today to wrap up: review and revise, take a look at what you're currently doing and see what you can do to improve to your meaning of the data you collect in your course evals. Don't be afraid, right? Make sure that they're getting that feedback. It's going to help in the long term. And then try new evaluation methods. Try that for me as a result of today. And when you do get that feedback, whether it's feedback you already have and you're sitting on wanting what to do, take action, set goals, do things with that information that you think will help improve the teaching experience for the learning experience for your students. Engage your students in that evaluation process. Let them know early. Let them know early, if nothing else. Hey, this is coming and I take it very serious at the very minimum. And then do something with that when you do the next time around. Okay. I'll hang out here for the next 20 minutes. If you have questions, comments, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Alternatively, we hope that you show up another time soon. We've got session 2 coming up in 2 weeks. We have third session in 4 weeks. And then in between, we have an awesome QM session. It's virtual. It's all about quality matters. I think this applies to not just our online folks. You don't have to be that familiar with QM, but it's a great event. It's going to be facilitated by somebody on this call with us here today. We have some gurus in QM, so I hope you consider signing up for it. I'll hang out here. Thank you for your time.